This is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. I hope you enjoyed this Critical Thought, your daily discussion on game design. Welcome to today's Critical Thought. As always, before we get going, thank you to 883 subscribers here on YouTube. I hope everyone's enjoying the great content, and if you're just tuning in and are liking things, be sure to subscribe as we're making our way up to 900 subscribers, if I can actually get the pointing right. There you go. Let's get rid of that little sub count. Before we get going for today's thought, I've lowered the brightness on my camera just because it seemed like I was extra shiny. Let me know what you think. Would you like it like this kind of setting or a little bit brighter? My little, I guess, quote-unquote set isn't exactly the most fancy there is, so I'm trying to make do with what we got. For today's Critical Thought, we're going to be talking about Iron Man or hardcore difficulty. For mainstream audience, you probably haven't heard that term too often, but for the, I'm pretty sure, many RPG and roguelike fans subscribed, you probably have heard these terms once or twice. For this Critical Thought, we're going to refer to it mainly as hardcore mode, as I think that's the easier term to reference. When we talk about hardcore mode in games, we're referring to playing a game with one life. That means no saving, no quick saving or quick loading. If you die, you're back at 0. For most games that feature hardcore mode, it's typically seen in the RPG and, like I said, the roguelike genre. This is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for some time, but I haven't really thought enough details about it to dedicate a full post to. I figured with the Critical Thoughts, this will be a great way of talking about without dedicating, 1,800 words to it. As I said, hardcore mode is not something we typically see in mainstream games. It's not a feature that a lot of gamers like, and that's kind of the weird thing about talking about hardcore, as it's kind of tricky figuring out why we like it so much. And I'm going to talk about some of my reasons, but for the hardcore fans who are watching, if you'd like to expand on what drives you or draws you to that mode, be sure to leave in the comments below. If you've watched previous Critical Thoughts when we talked about progression, I've of course mentioned the fact that gamers don't like losing progress. We don't want to waste our time playing a game or feel like that we're going backwards. But hardcore mode is kind of the exception to this rule. This is a mode where you can lose 10 minutes of play, you could lose 100 hours of play, depending upon the game and what's at stake. And if you've watched people play like Diablo 3 hardcore, there are some brutal reactions when they finally lose and they're at like torment level 6 and up. When I played Path of Exile and did my hardcore play, I got really close to swearing on the video when my character died. And for those of you watching this, you're probably saying to yourself, why put yourself through it? What's the point of driving yourself mad like that? And for my point of view, I find hardcore mode, when it works, or when games that are best suited for it, to be much more exciting than playing regular or what's considered softcore difficulty. And I'll give you an example with Diablo 3. If you've watched previous Perceptive podcasts or are fans of the site, then you know that I cannot play Diablo 3 anymore in softcore mode. I just find it too boring. And one of the draws of hardcore mode is that it forces you to pay attention. When you're playing Diablo 3 without that penalty of death, it can become very monotonous and very repetitive to play. You can feel your eyes start to glaze over, when you're at your 30th plus hour of playing a softcore character. It also leads to bad habits. Typically when I play Diablo 3 on softcore, I'm just playing it very cavalier. I'm just going to rush at enemies. I don't care if I die. I'll just, respawn, fight again, die, respawn, and again until the thing is dead. And that's not, perfect play or even optimal way of playing the game. But when you're enjoying hardcore mode, you're forced to pay attention. You're forced to think about things a lot more challenging and being a lot more conservative. For those of you who watch my Grim Dawn plays, you can certainly attest to that. When you're playing hardcore mode, suddenly health and defense are more important in some cases than just loading up on offense. And games that are designed around that to force you to adapt and pay more attention are some of the best. There's always, like I said, the excitement factor, and my example over there from Dungeons of Dreadmore is a pretty good model for that. You can see if you can't make it out, it says, "Congratulations, you have died." And that's the other point of hardcore mode. Death is going to happen. You can put it off, but chances are you're going to lose a character. And again, it's that thrill and excitement that makes it such an exciting way of playing a game. But some games are definitely tiered or geared towards it better. An amazing example, one that is always touted when we talk about hardcore mode, is XCOM, or by extension XCOM Enemy Unknown Within and 2. It is such a different mindset playing that game when you can't erase your mistakes, and when you have to basically play or live by the actions and decisions that go on. Now, of course, you can play Iron Man normally. You can impose that limit on yourself. But as gamers, we typically, if we're given the option to exploit or do something, we're going to do it. If we have the option to save and load at our leisure, that temptation will usually force us to do it repeatedly. But when we put that limit through the game, it makes it feel different. It makes it something that we have to, I guess, agree to, or we force it on ourselves. And XCOM being a great example of that. So many Let's Plays, and I forget if there's an actual term for when it's like written up in like a story form of it, have been defined by the fact that you're living and dying by your actions. There's no undo. You accidentally send your troop around the corner in front of a sectoid and he dies, well, that's it. He's gone. And like I said, designing a game where hardcore works, that's the tricky element. And it's one that I want to hear from you guys about your thoughts on this. The thing is, if we wanted to, we could turn any game into a hardcore kind of setting. We could play hardcore Mario. Even action games can go about that. I think with Devil May Cry, there's always a mode called Dante Must Die, where if he gets hit once in a level, you have to start the level over again. That's a pseudo form of hardcore mode, but there is, of course, with Doom 2016, Ultra Nightmare, where you die and you're back at the start of the campaign. And like I said, depending upon the game and the genre, hardcore mode can fit. But that leads to that very weird question. Are there examples when hardcore doesn't add to the experience? Again, this is not a mode that's going to be for mainstream audiences. And it takes a very explicit game to be designed exclusively around hardcore rules. Even XCOM Enemy Unknown has that option, but it's toggleable. It's not something that's forced on the player. For me, when I think about games where I want to play hardcore mode, it's games where there is both the excitement factor and the rules are lax enough that it's not overwhelming. And that's not a good term to use. I don't know if you heard that outside my window, but I can't think of a better term for this. And if you're watching this and if you can think of something, definitely let me know in the comments. But I'll tell you what I mean. I don't like to play games that are hardcore where it's almost an absolute in terms of win or loss. As in, I round the corner and the game spawns an enemy who has 5 times my stats, hits me with 1 hit, I'm dead. I like to play hardcore where it's on me whether or not I'm going to win or lose. A great example of this would be Darkest Dungeon, and how the game is never about one moment screwing you. It's about a cascading effect where you're basically given the rope to hang yourself. and it's how far you want to go. You know, it goes like this. You're not going to lose immediately. It's based on these factors. Let's say you have a really bad fight that leaves your party weakened, but you keep going. Then you get stress attacked, but you keep going. Then you lose a character due to a heart attack, but you keep going. And then your entire party wipes. Again, your party wiping was not just an immediate action. There were escalating issues that led to that. And those are the type of games I like to play in hardcore mode. When I play like an ARPG where I enter a boss fight and the boss just simply was, overstated and there's no way to get around or no way to escape, that I don't like when I play hardcore. When it's just such a, black or white issue. Now, one thing that I want to just quickly reiterate on, because I forgot to mention this, there is one example that I can think of a mainstream game with hardcore rules. And that's the Fire Emblem series. Fire Emblem, for those of you who don't follow it, is a tactical strategy game or a tactical RPG where every unit is essentially a custom character with a personality, traits, desires, and all that. That they run out of health, it's game over for that character. They are dead, you will never see them again, and that's it. And the game is all about trying to keep everyone alive, but knowing that if you're not good enough, you will have to make these tough choices. And Nintendo has laxed things with layer iterations. With the last version of Fire Emblem, you do have the option to play where if a character runs out of health, they simply retreat from battle. But I know that the fans definitely play with the hardcore setting. But like I said, depending upon the game and the genre, I'm not sure if every game can work with hardcore rules. We can certainly add them, but like I said, the best examples of hardcore difficulty are the games that are not only designed around it, but are balanced. Roguelikes like Dungeons of Dreadmore, games like XCOM, and even Diablo 3 after its patches. The original form of Diablo 3 also ran into that kind of stat overload that I was talking about. With the original form, there were cases where you would walk around, enemies would chase after you, and there was no way to get away from them, and they would kill you. Those damn those damn snake men of Act 2 were my bane for the original form of Diablo 3. But it has become a lot more lax or loosened up. You can still die very quickly, but you have the means to avoid it, whether it's escaping or just playing smart. And that ultimately, I think, is where hardcore mode is at its best. When it forces you, the player, to actually play smart. You're not going to, glaze over and stop paying attention. You have to always be on. And like I said, when it works, it can make games so much more thrilling and exciting. It's also really great for YouTubers and Let's Players, because it adds that extra thrill of excitement for the audience watching. As one final note, there is a game that I've been keeping an eye on from the developer Robot Loves Kitty. When I spoke to them about 2 years ago on the Perceptive Podcast, they were talking about this idea for a game called Epsilon Circuit, which is basically uber hardcore rules. They basically framing it as a game show where if you die, you will never be allowed to play the game again. I don't know if they've changed that since we last spoke. I've been wanting to talk to them more about it, but we haven't had the opportunity. But for those of you watching, what do you think about a game like that? We probably have to redefine hardcore. Uber hardcore, super hardcore, I don't know. But we're going to wrap up today's Critical Thought here. Once again, thank you for watching and for everyone who's been subscribing. Like I said yesterday, we are planning a live discussion this Friday at 3 Eastern on the Twitch channel, GW Bycer. I'll be hanging out with Twitch streamer Robert Swan. Be sure to tune in for that if you want to talk to us live and ask any questions. Like I said at the start, let me know what you think about the brightness. Is this too dark, too bright? I want to try and adjust things. Again, it's always a work in progress. Otherwise, I am Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com, where we examine the art and science of games. Thanks for tuning in to today's Critical Thought, and I'll see you all tomorrow with more great content here and on Game Wisdom. Take care. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share with your friends. It always helps out. For daily posts on all manner of game design and industry topics, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the site and everything that I do, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign. If we can hit goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy, and I'll be able to support myself and my household. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at GWBycer for updates throughout the day and random thoughts from me. And lastly, you can find me on Twitch right over there at GWBycer for daily streams most nights around 10 Eastern. Thanks again for watching the video, and be sure to check out more great content coming to the Game Wisdom channel real soon.